Good evening VC and anyone who might find themselves watching this video. Now it's been a few weeks since my last video on the American psychedelic and garage scene, and I showed a few records which I have in my collection. Part 2 of that video will be up later. In the meanwhile, between work and other day-to-day stuff, I thought I'd make a vinyl update for once. And let's just start. What we are of course listening to now is J.D. Blackfoot's The Ultimate Prophecy, which I guess you know, and I showed this before a couple of times, and I bought another US original which I'm listening to now to upgrade the cover on the one I had before. So now I have 4 J.D. Blackfoot's Ultimate Prophecy. When will it stop? I managed to score some American records on record fairs and buying online and in a few record shops. And the first I would like to show is the Peanut Butter Conspiracy. And the Great Conspiracy, I believe this is their first album. It's a VG copy. The cover is VG, but the album, the vinyl itself, is strong, excellent. Perhaps a bit too poppy for me. It's psychedelia, but I don't know. I have to give it a few more spins before I decide what I think. But certainly a fun piece to have, and an original as well. I have to flip through the records quite fast because I'm not sure if the video is too long, if it will upload. The next record I got my hands on is Joe Bird and the Field Hippies, and this is of course the 1969 release by Joseph Bird after the United States of America split up, and this is a somewhat late issue on the Masterworks label, but not black and grey as the original, but this is in near mint condition. Sad to say, this was a bit disappointing. I had great expectations for this album because of the United States of America, and mind you, it's a good album, but it doesn't come close to United States of America. But a good album. The next one I was pleased to find, because this was shown by Ron at the Hogs Air Report, the Boobies, with the infamous song Timothy about cannibalism. And I was very pleased to find this one with the original lyric insert. And I believe this is a second pressing on Skepta Records, because it's not the same label design as the first. But nevertheless, the music is great, and the album is far better than just the song Timothy, which they became somewhat famous for. The next album is a fun piece. The Group Image, a quirky psychedelic garage band from New York, I believe, and I was quite pleased to find it here in Norway. It's an original with seam splits and everything, but the LP is in good, excellent condition on Community Records, an original there. Quite small label, I believe. I like Sheila Darla's voice. They remind me a bit of a scruffy, more garage-like Jefferson Airplane. Another wonderful psych album from the United States, still in the shrink, is Morning Glory, and their only album, 2 Suns Worth, on the original Fontana label. And the standout track here is Jelly Gas Flame. Excellent, excellent mellow psychedelia with male and female vocals. I really recommend you give that a listen if you haven't heard them. Morning Glory, 2 Suns Worth on the Fontana label. And I managed to track down a copy of SRC's second album, Milestones, but this is a beat-up copy and the vinyl is worse than the cover, so I have to get an upgrade. Quite disappointing, but anyhow, the album is not as strong as their first, which has become one of my favorites, but one fun fact from here: they do a cover of In the Hall of the Mountain King, which is by the great classical composer from Norway, Edvard Grieg. That's funny for me, from Norway. The last American record I managed to get my hands on, actually from Denmark, is Mr. Flood's Party. Excellent, mellow, psychedelic rock pop. I just adore this album. And this is a near mint, except for the saw cut there. It's a near mint copy on the Cotillion label with lyric insert and everything. And if you're not familiar with Mr. Flood's Party, go and check it online. This is a wonderful mellow album. Excellent after a hard day's work to give that a spin. So that's the American records which I have managed to score these last weeks. And let's get on with it. Let's make our way over the pond to the United Kingdom and start off with a nice sampler, a nice compilation album called Nova Sampler. And this is a compilation album from the two series Deca Nova and Durham Nova, which were subdivisions of the Deca label, and they had a more proggy, obscure, underground psychedelia profile to them, such as other labels as Harvest and Vertigo Swirl, among others. But they folded pretty quickly after just 19 or 20 releases, and the albums on that label are quite expensive. Here are some of them. So this is a nice place to start if you want to listen to some of the Durham or Deca Nova artists. Galliard, Sunforest, Egg, Aardvark and Denny Gerard are on here, so it's a pretty solid compilation album. Now to a gem in my collection. From 1967 we have the Blossom Toes, We Are Ever So Clean, and this is an original on Marmalade Records. A stereo pressing. Wonderful label design there. And this is quite... they had their own sound. They were quite inventive. And this is a cornerstone in the British psychedelia scene. Although they went below the radar in their time, but this is quite Beatlesque and very British. Excellent songwriting on that album. Next one is a bit easier to find, Camel, and their second album Mirage on Durham. Wonderful album. If you're not familiar with Camel, this is the album to start off with, and this has the original insert, and I believe this is my third copy of the album. I've been upgrading since I first discovered the band 25 years ago or so, and this is my final copy. Now I have 3 copies of the very same album, and I don't need any more upgrades now. The next band is Mel Collins' band from before he joined King Crimson. The sax and flute player from King Crimson, and this band was called Circus. And they put out one album in 1969 before he joined King Crimson. And this has a couple of cool covers, such as Norwegian Wood and Monday Monday. And the album was originally released on Transatlantic. A solid album. but nothing compared to King Crimson. In the Court of the Crimson King, of course. Well, sorry for me going so fast, but another British album, Hunt and Turner, Magic Land. And this is a nice folk rock album by the duo. And I'm not familiar with any of their other work, if they did put out any records. It's on the Village Thing label, which is a subdivision of Transatlantic Records. I really recommend you go and check out Hunt and Turner's Magic Landscape on YouTube if you're into psychedelic folk rock. Now, here's a holy grail. The English band Audience and their withdrawn album, self-titled debut on Polydor from 1969. And this is an original, and they are rare as hen's teeth, because Audience had an argument with Polydor Records on the promotion plan or so, and they fled the country right after the release of this album. They refused to participate in the promotion plan, which resulted in Polydor deleting the album and withdrawing all the copies which hadn't already been sold. So this is a quite scarce album to find, and the cover is in fragile, thin black cardboard, almost paper-like. So to find one in such great condition, that's a lucky score. And the album, the music could be compared to Gentle Giant's first album. It's a bit of psychedelia, folk and prog, and just wonderful songwriting. I just love the album. Another one which I'm very pleased to have is Warhorse, their second album, The Red Sea. And of course Warhorse was the band which Nick Simper started after being sacked from Deep Purple. And this is in immaculate shape except for a little tear here on the inside. And I showed the first Warhorse album on my Vertigo Swirl video, and this also was released on Vertigo Swirl, and this is a UK pressing in very fine condition. So another fine addition to my Swirl collection with the inner sleeve as well. Let's move to Germany, and I have scored a couple of German records which I would believe would be called Kraut records, but you know, this term is in general for all German pop rock music which was released between 1968 and 78. But this is a folk duo, Witthuse und Westrup, der Jesus-Pilz, the Jesus Mushroom, a psychedelic folk rock duo from Germany, which I believe you can tell by the cover. Wonderful, wonderful stuff, and I have to show you the label, because it's on the famous and quite collectible label Pilz, which is the German word for mushroom. Wonderful label. I managed to score this, der Jesus-Pilz and Bauerplath, their second and third album. And I recommend you go have a listen to them. I believe there are some sound clips on YouTube. Here's Bauerplath on the same label. Great, great music. A nice addition to my German record collection. Another German record by the Canadian musician Mike Lewis and the great Conny Plank from Germany, the sound engineer. This is called Wuschel, which is the German word for something fuzzy. And I hadn't heard this record before, and I took a chance on it. And I wasn't blown away, to say the least, but I have to give it a couple of more listens. It's a quite rare record, so you have to pounce on them when they do appear. The last German record is 9 Days Wonder, and this cover was supposed to be covered with styrofoam or rubber foam. I don't know what it's called in English, but this has been peeled off. Otherwise, the cover is in immaculate shape and it still has the fold-out panel. And this is unbelievably good, solid psychedelic proggish jazz rock. Quite bizarre on the original Bacillus records. And it's a wonderful piece of music. So check out 9 Days Wonder from Germany. Now, the last 4 records I will show are from Scandinavia, where I come from. The first from Denmark, and another copy of Midnight Sun. And this is the original, the third version of the Rainbow Band's first album, after they had to change their name to Midnight Sun. They re-released their first album a third time with different name and different cover art. If you want to see the whole story on that record, check out my Danish prog psychedelia video. Let's jump to Finland and a wonderful prog rock band called Kalawala. This is a live recording from 1973, which I haven't had the chance to listen to yet. But it's on Smart Records, and I recommend everything from Smart Records. Quality pressings, quality releases. Then let's jump to Sweden, and I managed to score the last album I needed from November, the Power Trio, blues rock, heavy blues rock. And this is their second album of the 3 albums they released, called 2nd of November. And this is the best by far. And this is on the original Sonnet label with the trumpet. So, finally I have completed my November collection. Go check out November, even though you wouldn't understand the lyrics because they sang in Swedish. The music stands for itself. The last album is an upgrade of the heavy band Rufus from Norway, and this is their debut album, Newborn Day. And just look at this cover art. Just wonderful. The same landscape in wintertime and in the summertime. And this debut is from 1973 on Polydor Records. This was also released in Germany on Brain Records, because they had some degree of success in Germany as well. And that's because they later turned in a more jazz rock oriented direction. So if you don't like jazz rock but do like heavy rock, this is the album to go for. Well, that was a quick run through and update of what I've been buying lately, and my next video will be for sure about the US prog and garage scene, the part 2 video. Thanks for watching, hope all is well. Bye bye for now.